Well, there is a message this morning coming forth. And our topic this morning is accepting our brilliance. That came from the theme that the conference that I just came back from had as their theme, accepting our brilliance. This was the Affiliated New Thought Network, or the Antin Conference. This is a conference of ministers primarily, but it also involves anyone, congregants, lots of different folks in a New Thought movement are there to share and receive the information of all the different presenters. It's a week long. It runs from Monday to Friday, and we've had it at different places throughout the years. This time, we had it at the Unity Village, which is the headquarters and the place where the Unity movement, which is another New Thought movement besides religious science, where the New Thought movement began. The Charles and Myrtle Fillmore started the Unity movement, and they built the campus, Unity Village. They actually bought the land in the early 1900s, and it started with like 58 acres. And over the years, they acquired different farms that were next to them, and it's now 2,100 acres. They had an amazing vision where both of them went together and they made a covenant. I don't have it with me. I'm not reading it for you today, but they literally made a covenant that they were to share and teach and allow this spiritual knowing that they had come up with to be able to bring it forth into the community, into everyone that they could meet. And so they built this called campus. And actually the name of the city is Unity Village. It's got its own zip code. It's 20 miles just outside of Kansas City, Missouri. It was especially poignant for me because my mother-in-law, who hopefully most of you know, actually started our church. She was the founding minister as a Unity church. It was actually called Unity in the Country. That's what our corporate papers were first issued with. And though she didn't have a Sunday service, she owned a bookstore, and she taught classes in the back room. And she graduated in 1977 from the seminary at Unity Village. Everyone who's a Unity minister had to go there for their seminary. And there's a wall at one in the educational building where we had our meetings and such and our breakout sessions. And on this wall, it's probably as long as this whole room is that we're in, were all the photographs of each graduating class from the beginning one, which was in the early 30s, I'm thinking. And she graduated in 1977. And sure enough, I found her there in the little picture. They were probably about, I'm guessing, each class was maybe about 30 people or so. And so the energy of this place was just amazing. And everyone that was at the conference, there were about 90 participants at the conference. And it was just overwhelming, the energy that was there, because the history was so rich. Unity is based on prayer, and they have since 1893 had continuous 24 hours, 7 days a week prayer in their prayer vigil. And you can write to Silent Unity, it's called, with a prayer request. You can call them any hour of the day, and a person will answer the phone. They also now have an app on your phone where you can get your prayer requests through the internet. And so they asked us, the participants, if we wanted to go into the prayer vigil room to be able to hold the prayers for all of the people who had made the requests. Typically, and what they do is, like if it's a physical prayer, there's like these doors that are have like little slits in them, like little windows, and they're just right on the wall, and they open it up, and that's where they put the prayer requests in there, and they're held there for 30 days. So every day they keep track of which one went in on 30 days and take those out and put new ones in. There's also, if you do it digitally, they have CDs that they put inside the room so that that energy and those requests on digital are there in the room. And you do a 30-minute session. And so we were able to sign up when you want to go to do your vigil, because it's not open to the public. I mean, you have to be able to be entered into the sanctuary by request, and they grant that for you. So anyway, these little doors along the wall, and they open up, and they have all these little papers in them, and then inside the room is CDs, and then there's a lantern there that symbolized the light, holding the light of this prayer. And so it was just amazing. I was able to go in there and do my little 30-minute session of holding and knowing the truth for all of these prayer requests. Typically, at any one time, there's about 150,000 prayer requests that you are praying on. And over the course of a year, it's well over 1 million or more requests that they work with. And that we had and of course, to finish up with my mother-in-law, my former mother-in-law, she was a Unity minister from 1977, and she passed in 2013. And her ashes are spread on the rose garden there. And so I brought back my little booklet, my little walking tour of the Unity Village. I don't know if many of you can see. They built this tower in the center of these acres in 1929. And we had a couple speakers that were from the area. And one man in particular said that his grandfather had owned a farm adjacent to Unity Village, and they drive over to see their grandfather, and this thing was just towering at the time. Can you imagine? I don't know how tall it is, but it's really tall. I mean, it's in Missouri. It's flat. There's not a lot around it. And so he was saying how that they were driving around, and they come around a corner, and they'd see this big old huge tower, like, what's that? And his parents say, oh, that's Unity. And he goes, well, what's that? Well, we're really not sure, but they don't think the way we think. Was the response he had as he was a child. And they have just done some miraculous things. Oh, here it is. Each year answers 1.7 million prayer requests, supports 1.5 million online radio listeners, and distributes 3 million daily word magazines. They have the rose garden, they have fountains, they have upgraded everything over the last few years. They've got the CEO spoke to us, the president spoke to us, the director of Silent Unity spoke to us, and they've really pumped it up in the being able to upgrade all their services as well as the facility around there. The hotel, it's called the Hotel and Conference Center that we stayed in, was totally upgraded 3 years ago. It was one of the first green hotels in all of the United States. And I mean, the bathrooms are amazing. I mean, I think that's the granite slate. I mean, it's beautifully done. And so it was so successful, everyone was just so loving it, that they've already booked it for next year. So next year, come with me to Unity Village. It'll be October 15 that week, October 15. And more will be coming out about it. But to put that on the back burner, to be able to be there in that wonderful energy and presence that we experienced. So some of the, did all that, let me see. There were different speakers that were very interesting. One of them I'd never heard of, but he's been in this movement for like ever. J. Scott Neal. Marilyn probably knows him, I'm guessing. And he first came into this movement when he was in his 20s, and his teacher was Fenwick Holmes, Ernest Holmes' brother. And Fenwick lived up until his 90s. So this J. Scott Neal had a lot of different, like, juicy stories about back in the day, you know, and what was being said and so forth. He said that, I don't know how many of you are knowing that Ernest Holmes was really good friends with Peggy Lee. Peggy Lee was a singer, you know, back in the day. And, of course, they were in Hollywood. They were in the L.A. area. Now, it was interesting because Jay said that Hazel and Ernest were driving down in L.A., and they saw a young girl, 14-year-old girl, holding a baby on the street. And Hazel, they stopped, picked her up, and they brought her home, and they raised that child, which was the 14-year-old's baby. That was Peggy Lee. Now, Peggy Lee was the mother of the 14-year-old child. Now, I searched the internet scrutinally, and I tried to find any sort of information that agreed with that little detail. In all of the official biographies and such, that's not listed. I will say, though, that this man said that's how they met. And so it's interesting that in the bios, though, what you see of Peggy Lee, you know who Peggy Lee was, the singer? Do you know what she was the inspiration for? They called her Miss Peggy Lee. She was the inspiration for Miss Piggy. Miss Piggy. She was the inspiration for Miss Piggy. She had this beautiful blonde hair. And also she wrote and did the voices for Lady and the Tramp. She wrote many of the songs that were in Lady and the Tramp, and she did the voices for them. But what it says in her bio is how she became to know Ernest Holmes was that she started going to his lectures, and then she went over to London to do some sort of major production. I mean, it was a huge deal, and she got sick. So in those days, she called a person-to-person telephone call and got a hold of Ernest Holmes directly, and he gave her a treatment right there, and she was able to perform. And when she came back, then she attended all of his lectures, and they became fast friends. They cooked dinner together, and they did all sorts of things. So that's what you see on the internet as far as their relationship goes, but we may know the rest of the story here. I don't know. But Ernest, one of the things that he talked about when he developed what we call treatment, which is an affirmative prayer process. But he would always tell people that I'm working for you. And when he would say, I'm working for you, that means that he's praying, giving an affirmative prayer, a treatment for you. And that's what he would do. So it was and I got to talk to this J. Scott Neal fellow quite a bit. And I also got to talk to Angelo Pizzello, who is the director of the Emerson Institute, which is our educational arm. And as many of you know, we in our congregation have a Science of Mind 300 class, which means these people are going through, they've gone through Science of Mind 100, 200, now they're in the 300, which is the practitioner series. This is where when they go through this, then they are practitioners. So I sat with Angie and said, okay, how does this work? Because this is the first time we've had people from our congregation going through up to this level. And so how do we do this? What is it, like they have an internship thing they have to do? Oh, yes. Yes, there's an internship, Gay, and it's a year long. And I haven't had a chance to share this with the folks that are going to be doing it, but I'll let you know that you will be seeing more of our third-year students in our Sunday services as they are will be available to work for you, practicing their skills, honing their skills on giving treatments for us. So it's all good. It's all in the works and exciting, very exciting in the growth of our organization. So I just wanted to let you know some of the things that were said in the conference itself that I wanted to relate to you this morning as far as being brilliance goes. The whole theme of the conference was based on diamonds. And of course, the diamonds has 4 C's: clarity, color, cut, and carat. And of course, carat is the weight. Well, the first speaker that we had was Reverend Jean Sweet, who has a background as a landscape contractor. That's what she was doing before she became a minister. And so she highlighted these 4 characteristics of a diamond in her talk. And that she said one of the first things that you need to recognize if you are going to have clarity in your life is to have the feeling, the recognition, the acceptance of having inclusivity. Include everything that happens within you, within your realm of existence. Include it. Don't try to exclude anything. That's not worthy. You include. If it's coming into your existence, there is a way that you can have a growing edge experience from that, whatever it is. So be very slow to judge what something is good and something is bad if it's in your experience. Let yourself include it. So I wanted to tell you, I debated with myself if I should share this or not, but you know what? This is important because life happens, right? We're in this beautiful, pristine place. I'm telling you all the wonderful energy. Everybody's like up to here. And this conference is the major fundraiser for Affiliated New Thought Network. That's where they get their money. And we had just had this wonderful board meeting, the meeting of the members, where the board had really done some housekeeping, some really good housekeeping. They revised their bylaws. Sounds familiar. We just did ours. They also were able to clean up some financial information that was a little loosey-goosey and got that all in integrity. And so on Tuesday night and Wednesday night, at the very end of the whole session, they took up a collection. You know, and you can give them a check, you can give them cash, you can give them, you swipe your debit card or whatever, however you want to do it, credit card. So they took a collection on Tuesday night, they took a collection on Wednesday night, and then on Thursday night we have our big banquet, and we have an auction. Previously, the auctions, the highest dollar that they'd ever made on any auction was about $5,000. This year's auction brought in over $8,000. And I will say that I contributed to, I won Martha Creek's year-long coaching session again. I also, and it was so funny too because when they were doing the bidding, you know, it's a live auction, you're putting your hand up, right? And at one point, I'm like, yeah, I got it, yay! And Martha was right next to me. She walked over and she goes, honey, it wasn't you. That lady behind you was the one that got it. And I had no idea that somebody behind me was bidding. And I just went, oh! And so Martha goes, I'm sorry, honey, but it was her. She goes, well, did you want to bid more? I go, well, yeah, I was ready to bid more. Well, maybe we could continue the bidding then. So anyway, I did win it. And I also won, Reverend Michelle Whittington was there, and she offered a prosperity program. So I won that one, and we'll be giving that one in this next summer. We'll have Michelle Whittington's prosperity program. So in any event, but what I want to get back to is Thursday night, after the banquet, after the auction, after the dancing, after we had a band, we had a concert. At midnight, my roommate, Marcy Baruch, who was one of the musicians, she got a phone call. She answered her phone. She goes, "What? Really?" She said, "Gay, did you write a check on the, when they did the offerings? Did you give them a check?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, they're notifying everyone that the offerings, we had a robbery, and the offerings have all been stolen. So you may need to call your bank and put a stop pay on that check." And yeah, we're like, "What? How could this happen? What? We've just been in such this great, energy and vibe, and what?" And then Friday morning when we came in, we were told that, yes, this is what happened. And evidently, they must know who did it, because they said the perpetrator, knew. Let's do a prayer for her. And we were given the opportunity, if you wanted to replace your check, put a stop pay on it and replace it, you could. Many people put a stop pay on it and then replaced it with a higher dollar amount. And but I'm bringing this up to you because first of all, I'm thinking, maybe I shouldn't let anybody know that. Hello? Life happens, guys. We want to include everything in our experience to learn, to grow, to have the leading, growing edge for ourselves come through it. And like Reverend Frank, who was the Dr. Frank Zamalin, he's the president of the board, he just said, it's just money, though it is just money. And so it was an interesting event that happened. So I wanted to just share that with you, but I also want to get back to some of the meat of what we had as far as the input from our speakers. We had Pam Grout, who wrote E Squared. She was a hoot. She was great. And we had actually 2 different sessions with her. She's very interactive. She had a beach ball, and she'd throw the beach ball, and whoever it landed, you had an opportunity to stand up. And and it was so funny because some people would, they'd knock it away from me, they didn't want it, and so forth. But so in any event, we had going back to Jean's talk, because she was the one that started it off with talking about the diamond and the way that we are the diamonds in life. And she said, she says she's really funny, and she just says stuff and she said, we are growing up all over each other. And Reverend Jerry Troyer brought up the fact that he reminded everybody, and since Jean told us this one thing, I've shared it with all my congregation, I say it all the time now, which you've heard from me. She said, "Yes, thank you, more please." Right? That's Reverend Jean's. "Yes, thank you, more please." Well, she corrected him, and she said, "That's not the whole quote." "Really? We left something out?" "Yes, thank you, more please, even better." So that was the last little tag that we have to remember now. Yes, thank you, more please, even better. So I wanted to let you know the 3 elements in which I had it in my thought for the week of clarity and intention will change our lives. And those 3 elements are desire, vision, and then having a plan. And I'm just going to read what I had in my thought for the week. Consider these 3 elements that go into living from clarity and intention. First, there is desire. Desire literally means of the Father. To hear and know our true heart's desire takes becoming still, asking, listening, and then trusting that desire. The second element is that of vision. Vision is to utilize our imagination to figuratively see with our mind's eye the potential and possibilities of our desires. Once these have become known, Spirit will conspire to help bring about our intentions in unknown ways to us at any time. When Spirit speaks, trust it, and then take the next known and available step in the direction of your desires. Jean also reminded us of the quote we've heard Ernest Holmes say time and time again, change your thinking, change your life. Well, she inserted a little bit of something in the middle there. She said, change your thinking, change your emotional agreement to, and fill in the blank. You know what I'm talking about. So there's some issue going on, and you have developed an emotional agreement to have this whatever in your life. So you change your thinking, but change your emotional agreement about. That will change your life. There's more to it than just the thinking. We know that. There is the heart. There is the feeling. That is the energy that puts forth and emotes what we have in our lives, what brings about. That's that drawing force, that energy, that magnet. And so we need to acknowledge that. And we need to acknowledge our feelings, our emotions, and then know that if that's something that's holding me back, I'm going to recognize it and let go of the emotional attachment that I have had for that. Jean also said that we are to speak our word with conviction and authority. Jesus the Master told us, showed us the way to do it. What did he do? Did he speak with willy-nilly, oh, I'm going to hope this will happen? He said, this is it, guys. I'm speaking with conviction. I'm speaking with authority. And that's the way Ernest Holmes primarily gave all of his treatments. Oh, gosh. And it was so rich at the very, very end. You know what we got to hear? Ernest Holmes' last lecture that he gave before his passing. He passed in 1960, and in 1959, he gave the closing talk at the Asilomar, which is the Religious Science Convention, and it's called Sermon by the Sea, is the title of it. He had no notes. He just stood up, and he gave it, and we heard J. Scott Neal give the rendition of it. He had it, in front of him. He was reading it, but of course, J. Scott Neal was an actor, and he used his voice in many things. But so he has this great voice, and evidently he has just finished making a movie about Ernest Holmes. So that's going to be coming out. And he actually in the movie utilized Ernest's voice in this movie. I don't know. He said he talked like this. I don't know. He didn't do the sermon on by the sea in that voice, but it was amazing because literally embedded in that talk, Ernest foretold of his passing. He literally said that some of us will not be here next year, and of course he wasn't. He passed before the next conference. So I want you all to recognize that we are these beautiful diamonds, that we have this clarity within us. We are all cut with our own perfect cut, that our color is individual to us, and that it will change, it will grow as we continue to live on that growing edge of our infinite potential. I'm going to sprinkle throughout the rest of this month some more little wisdoms that I learned at the conference, that's for sure. But I just wanted to leave you this morning with the thought that you are a diamond in the crown of God. You are a diamond in the crown of God. Go shine bright. And so it is. Namaste.